Hey guys, Gage here from Sharp. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's a pleasure to have you with me today. We've got this 165mm Santoku in from Masutani-san to be sharpened. So I thought it would be cool if we just did it together kind of, and I just talked along the way about how I would do this. Yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. If you have never watched our previous video on how to sharpen a knife, I would recommend you do that before watching this. Or if you've already had some experience sharpening, this should be easy to understand. So first thing I'm going to do is just kind of give a quick assessment to the knife, check out what's going on, see if there's any sort of weird parts in the grind that may affect the way the edge looks when I'm sharpening. So what I mean by that is sometimes the grind is a little bit uneven and there's some thick parts and some skinny parts, or maybe the profile is a little bit weird. On handmade knives, sometimes things can happen like that, so that will affect the way the edge looks. But this knife has been sharpened previously and it looks nice and straight. The grind is really nicely done, so I don't think that's something we have to worry about. Now, because this knife is like a nice Japanese knife, I'm going to sharpen it around 10 to 15 degrees, probably around there. If it were German, I might sharpen it more like this, just because the edge would last a little bit longer. But yes, 10 to 15 degrees on Japanese knives. Screw around with it a little bit, see what works best for you. Now I'm just using a Suhiro Syrax 1000 grit stone. These are great stones. This knife is in relatively good shape, so I'm not going to need to go down any lower than this. I'll still be able to sharpen this knife relatively quickly. If it were more dull than this, I would probably go down a little bit just to speed up the process. So as you can see, all I'm doing is applying pressure as I push the knife away from myself, release pressure as I come back, and I'm just working my fingers from the heel all the way up to the tip and then all the way back down. And what I'm most focused on right now is just maintaining my angle and trying to be consistent with my hand pressure. I like to sort of think of the knife in sections and move my fingers to each one of those sections. As you can see, just moving up and down the blade. I don't want to focus too much on one part over any other part. And then I'll kind of put in some long strokes like this just to even all of my work out. When I'm doing the tip, I'm kind of I have to lift the handle up a little bit to get up onto the tip because of the curvature of the blade. You sort of have to try to match that curvature in your stroke. So I'm getting kind of up on the tip like that. Tip can be a little bit tricky to get really nice. I also find these sort of like half moon strokes like this really help with getting the tip. And now I'll just check my work, see how things are doing. I can feel a burr all the way right to, I need to do a little work on the heel, and then I'll also check out the edge here and make sure that I'm being consistent. If I see any parts that are like really thick, the edge, I know I'm doing too much work there or something else is going on that I need to fix. And vice versa, if it's really skinny, then I haven't done enough work, or maybe I'm angled too far up when I'm doing that portion of the blade. And from what I can tell, just by looking and feeling, I can see I need to do a little work on the heel and just sort of work on the tip a little bit. In terms of pressure, I'm not applying a ton of pressure, but I'm, being firm. My right hand and wrist are just staying locked in place, or as much as I possibly can. And that's sort of what's helping me maintain my angle. And for the most part, the pressure is coming from my left hand, but when I get down into the heel, I'm applying pressure with my thumb. Okay. Okay, we're looking real good. My burr feels nice. All the way from the tip down to the heel. My edge looks consistent, so I'm happy. I'm gonna flip over and do the other side. But before I do that, my stone's getting a little plugged up here, so I'm just gonna grab my diamond plate and just do a quick scrub-a-deb. I like to try to keep my stones flat all the time, so I'll often do this, just like a really quick job in between doing the sides of the knife. It helps to pull the steel out of my stone, and it helps to just keep everything flat. And then I'm never having to spend too much time flattening my stones. They just stay flat all the time. So now, instead of starting down here, we're gonna start furthest away from us on the stone. And we're going to apply pressure as we pull towards ourselves, releasing pressure as we go back. And same thing as on the other side. I'm just going to sort of work in sections here. And then I'll put in some longer strokes just to sort of even everything out after. I also sort of use my thumb on my left hand as a sort of guide. I'll almost leave it in contact with the stone while the whole time I'm sharpening. And it just helps to sort of, so I'm talking here, just kind of helps to keep the knife in place, create a bit of a vise. So again, I'm just gonna check my work now, see how my edge is doing. My burr feels nice. In my experience, once you get the burr formed on that front side, flipping over to the other side, the burr forms pretty quickly. So depending on what bevel you want to do, I usually put like a 70-30 on right-handed knives. You just have to make sure you put in a good amount of work on the back side. It can be a little bit deceiving sometimes. It just like forms super quick. So my burr feels nice already, but I'm just gonna put in a little bit more work on this back side here. Same thing with my tip when you kind of have to match the curvature of the blade. So once I get to about here, I'm starting to lift up the handle a little bit to match the curvature of the blade. Santokus are usually pretty straight, so they're a good one to sort of learn on. Gyutos, depending on the maker, obviously, can be a little bit more curvy. And I'll do a video on a Gyoto coming up real soon too. So, edge looks great. Burr feels nice. Now time to deburr. So now I'm going to go back to the side I started on, put it in a nice long stroke. Stay right where I am, flip the knife over, put in a nice long stroke coming back, and I'm going to repeat this process a bunch of times. My hand pressure is getting progressively lighter as I go. So when I first was putting in strokes, they were about the same hand pressure as I was using while sharpening. And now I'm like pretty much just using the weight of the knife to make contact with the stone. And now when I'm checking my work, I'm feeling both sides of the blade for a burr. I don't want to feel a burr at this point. And if I run my fingers down the length of the blade, it should feel like it's going to grab into my skin, which it does if this feels really nice. So we're done on this 1000 grit stone. This knife is made from VG10, so we'll head on over to a 4000 grit stone now. You'll find that with VG10 off of a 1000 grit stone, I almost feel like feels really nice. And in fact, Masatani-san, who makes this knife, told me that he only sharpens up to a 1000 grit stone. He says that the edge off of a 4000 feels really nice, but it doesn't last as long in his opinion as off of a 1000. But I figure we'll go up to one more here. It does feel really nice, and he does a really great job of sharpening, and he puts his knife over a strop, which we will do later as well. And his knives are crazy, crazy sharp. But let's do a quick polish on this 4000 just because I'm doing a little tutorial video here. So everything stays the same on the 4000 with the exception of the hand pressure. We're going to be a little bit lighter at this point because we're trying to refine that edge. But as you can see, I'm still working the knife sort of in sections, moving my fingers along the blade, trying to be consistent with my angle. And now I'll put in some long strokes just to even everything out. See how we're doing. Need a little work on the heel here. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'll make sure I answer you guys. Okay, we're looking great here. Tip looks nice, heel looks good. One more work on the tip. Okay. Yep, we look great. So flipping over, doing the other side. The burr can be a little bit tough to feel on these higher grit stones, especially when you're first starting out. But you'll with experience, you'll start to feel more. You'll get more sensitivity in your fingers, and you'll be able to feel the burr. Okay, we're looking great here. I'm going to put in my deburring strokes. Okay. Yeah, this feels great. Our edge looks nice, super consistent. I'm done on the stones here, so I'm just going to dry my knife off real quick and then we'll hit the strop. Okay, so our strop here, I'm just going to hit it on the fine side really quickly. When I use the strop, I'm just trying to be, again, super consistent. Making sure I'm making good contact with the strop, but I'm not applying a tremendous amount of pressure at this point. Just trying to be consistent. If If you never used a strop before, I think you'd be amazed at how big a difference it can make. You can really take your sharpening to the next level, and this guy is razor sharp. Let's see if we can. Yeah, we're just shaving hairs. Yeah, real sharp. So, there you go guys, how to sharpen a Santoku. Like I said, no need to go down super low if your knife is in relatively good shape. We could have gotten away with just sharpening this on a 1000 grit stone. I think some beginners get hung up on thinking they need the highest grit stone. In my experience, when we're first starting out, the best thing that we can do is focus on our technique, and a 1000 grit stone will give you a really great edge if you use proper technique. So that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you, again, have any questions or comments, make sure you leave them down below. Make sure you subscribe for more sharpening and knife related content. And until the next video, I hope you have a pleasant day.